Hello, my friends. Thank you for staying with us. We're talking to Pastor Roger here, and this is something else. I hope you're enjoying your faith story on our podcast, because here we have a blessed gentleman who tells his story in a very unique way. He gives us a lot of details because he thinks these details are important. He expressed in the first two parts of this conversation how he met God. As a little boy, innocently, God was there. Then he got baptized by following his dad to church, and he went on to describe how God revealed himself to him. You should go back and listen to the second part of this conversation to get the full picture. Now, Roger, you described to me that you see your life your faith walk has been in phases. Mm-hmm. And so take us to phase 2. You met God, you have a relationship with him. How did it go? I mean, that was early teens. I know life comes along, right?
Yeah, yes. And again, I want to start with my family. My dad's conversion was not like a great news, because after that, he started losing interest in life, things of the world. And the government was not so much the thing that he wanted to do anymore. So, as you could figure, money was no longer what it used to be.
Right.
So it became a bit poorer at this time. And issues between him and mom started coming up. And they were going through their own marital issues as well. And while he's being transformed by God, and all that were happening at the same time, when I'm growing up, and I could see how my hero's life, marriage life, is being destroyed. And I was 15, going 16 when they were filing for their divorce. And when my mom left home, and my other siblings also, when they left, other people went from different countries. When some went back to France, Senegal, different countries around the world. But I remained. I stayed with my dad. I'm the one who stayed with my dad the longest. And so, but life was not pretty anymore. It was now, I think that we became very poor. And he was no longer in the government. And there was a change of regime, political regime. So it was not good at all. If those who are familiar, whenever in countries like that, when the government is changed, the regime changes, the previous one suffered more. And so that's why he's in trouble. So we had these issues, and life was tough, was difficult. Now, worshiping God in brokenness, in broken family, broken dreams, and scattered families, scattered siblings, and you have to still hold on to your identity. And the only thing that remained was God. The only thing remained was God. The only thing that made sense to me was God. We were poor, that we don't have enough. We didn't have enough money. We could even to have shoes. I remember I used to borrow shoes from someone to go to school. People in school would laugh at me and at my dad. You guys used to have this, now you guys are poor. And it was bad. Even food at home was you will not get enough to eat. And I started to hate life. I didn't like life. I didn't like church. I didn't like God. I didn't like him. I didn't like, if that's what God was all about, man, why didn't he save my dad from all the trouble and from us going through all these things, the divorce and my mom not being at home and all that, and the country, and also was going through his own crisis, political crisis, chaos, wars, civil wars, and all the stuff. So it wasn't pretty. Nothing was pretty. Our life was not pretty. Here, as I mentioned to you, the country is not known. Even our poverty is not known. our
It's
career.
not known. Mm.
Nothing is known. We were very poor. This was one of the poorest countries in the world. But we're not poor enough to get the attention of the world.
Not poor enough.
Not
That's
poor
terrible.
enough. And so we're not known, and nothing is known. My story of brokenness is not known. My dad's divorce is not known, and my mom leaving was not known. What was happening in my life was not known. Nothing was known. Nobody will pay attention to you except the God who called me
Except
the
God.
first time.
Yeah.
And he's now calling me the second time. And I decided, one day I told my dad, because the way they were treating my dad so bad, I told my dad I wanted to join the army.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad looked at, because my dad was also a soldier. He was the army and all those stuff. So he looked and said, "Oh, that's great." I called him at night. Actually, everybody was sleeping. I called in, two of us in the living room. I said, "Dad, I want to join the army." He said, "Oh, really?" I said, yeah, I want to join the army. He said, "Why?" I say, "No, I want to join the army. I want to, do electronics in the army." He knew I was so much into electronics and also medical, science, electronic technology, and also science, biology. And he said, "Oh, okay.
Right.
So what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to do electronics in the army." He knew, without me telling him, that I was someone who was preparing to become a military power and to overthrow the government. That's what I had in mind.
Mm. Mm.
I hated the government that was in place was torturing my dad, my family. So my dad could read my mind because I love him so much that I could do anything. So I was setting myself for being a soldier and to come and overthrow the government. And my dad say, "Wow, yeah, you can be this, you can do that, you can make bombs, and you can be smart, right?" Yeah. So he was trying to probe me to see what I had in my heart, and I was speaking out and say, yes. I said, "Good." And
Yeah.
then he said, "You know what? I will send you somewhere to a boarding school, and just go there, and for you to relax, and then you come back. You'll come back, and then we'll pick from there." So I said, "Cool." I said, "All right,
Yeah.
deal." The school he sent me to was
Why
an
is
Adventist
that?
school, in
Yeah.
Cameroon, Africa. Sent two of us, me and my brother, my younger brother. We went there. That school was an Adventist school. Was in Adventists, they believe that school have to be in a remote place, way away from cities and stuff. So that thing was in the forest. It was
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. So we were there,
Yeah.
religious
Yeah.
people and stuff,
Sounds like the place for you.
a place. Oh,
Yeah.
mercy! I just say, what are we doing here? And the place was not very nice anyway. It was not a great school,
Yes.
but there's a religion. There was religion. There was religion in the morning, in the evening. There was religion at church every Sabbath. In the Saturdays, church, people talking gods and stuff. There was a theologian, a pastor, who would come to our class, and one day he was doing Bible study with us, and at the end of that Bible study, he says this. He asked us, take a piece of paper, write down what you want to become in your life. So people wrote, and I wrote mine as well. I wrote to him, I want to become a soldier. I gave it to him. So after that, he picked all the things he read all the papers, all what people wrote, and then somehow it's only mine that interested him. Troy, oh, God is merciful. He only took mine and he followed me after class. He said, "Roger, come." I say, "Yeah."
Come here, Roger.
And he say, "Wow, it's interesting. You want to be a soldier?" I say, "Yes." I say, "Yes." I say, "So what's good?" And then he wrote on the back of my paper. He gave back my paper to me. And I took it and I say, "Okay, cool. I say, "Yeah." I say, "May God bless you, man." So I said, "Okay, yeah." And then I opened my paper and I look at the back. He wrote, "It's good to be a soldier, but it's great to be a soldier of Christ."
Wow. Amen. Another turning
When
point.
he said, that's the turning point. I say, what in the world this guy is saying? I just threw the paper. I threw the paper, but I did not throw away the words of the paper on the paper. I could
You
not
kept it
throw
in your
that.
heart.
I kept it in my heart.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
while I was going through all the stuff, my mind was changing towards being a
Soldier for
servant,
Christ.
soldier
Yes.
for Christ.
Yes.
And as I mentioned to you, and as you know, as you mentioned also in the beginning, I didn't have like a voice saying, "Roger, I want to be my servant. Come," like the same way, like also Abraham. No, I didn't hear that. Mine was
Yeah.
a transformation of a heart, of a mindset towards something
Right.
more beautiful than what I had for
Right.
myself. And I
Amen.
started developing
Amen.
some desire. I'm telling you, Troy, passion for souls was created in my heart. I started enjoying people giving their life to God. I started people getting baptized. I started enjoying giving Bible study to people. I started enjoying it. And then after 2 years in that boarding school, that's what, right before I went to college, I went back home. When I went back home to see my dad, I was tall. My dad looked at me and said, "Oh, you are." I was taller than my dad. I was 6'2". My dad is 6'1".
Yeah.
I was 6'2" then. He said, "Oh, you're tall." My dad embraced me. He said, "Come back home." My mom, as I told you, they divorced, but my dad never remarried. By himself, humble person. My dad is more of a pastor than I am. He's a church elder, but he is. Look at him, you will think that he's a pastor. His house is filled with spiritual books, Bible books and stuff like that. When I came home, whatever my dad was reading, I was reading.
Wow.
I became a prolific reader because of my dad.
Yeah.
He was reading. He would read a book, I read it. He read a book, and read it. But I didn't tell him the changes that are happening in my heart. I didn't tell him that. So one day, at night, I called him aside, and I told him.
You love to do that, I notice. Yeah.
Oh yes, I know. I like the one-on-one at night. So
yeah.
Right before that, before I talked to him that night, there was another night. I called him. I told him that, because I know my dad was worried about me being a soldier. So when I came back from Cameroon, a few months later, I told him that I don't think I want to be a soldier anymore. But I didn't tell him that I want to be something else. I told him that because I love biology, so I want to be a doctor. And Dad was happy. He thought that the idea for sending me out there was what
to boarding school. Yeah.
Boarding school worked. It changed my mind because I had a lot of anger in my heart, and that anger was gone. You could see I loved life and wanted to do something different. It's all good. So I was studying now, being in medical school, but my heart was not in the medical field. I love it, but my heart was not there. I just said that to him because I was afraid that he was not ready for the other vocation that I had, the other calling. So when I was in school, I would go from village to village, town to town, city to city, preaching. Sometimes I would miss school. I would just go preaching. I come after 1 month. And they said, "But you're not going to school." I said, "Dad, I'll catch up." And the good thing is that at school, I was very good at school as well. So my dad could not complain that much because I was always passing. I was second in my class or first in my class. So
That's
he could not
amazing.
really complain about anything. I was good at school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kept on doing it, and while I'm preaching. So while I'm preaching, while I was accompanying my pastor, church pastor, doing evangelism. I fell in love with what he was doing. I fell in love with it. But I didn't know that I could be a pastor. I didn't know I could be full time. I
All
thought
right.
that only some people be like I couldn't. I thought that I didn't even know that I could become a pastor.
You could be a pastor. All right.
I
All right.
couldn't. I didn't know.
Pastor Roger.
I didn't know. Yeah.
But I think it's a good. What I'm going to do, because
Yeah.
this conversation is so detailed, and I'm enjoying it. You know, that's what your story, your faith story on CultivateurFaith.com is all about. And I thank you for the details. But I see where you're taking us. You're taking us into where you are now a minister of faith. And I'm going to take a break right here and give you a chance on the other end to tell us where you are today, how you, after you decided to go become a minister full time. It's so wonderful how God has cultivated and guided you over time. And here you are. My friends, you have to go back and watch part 1, part 2. This is part 3. And let me give you very specific instructions. If you go down into the notes of this chat, you will see links to part 1, part 2, and part 3. When we come back, we're going to do part 4, where Roger is going to talk about his ministry. There's a question I also have, because I listened to one of his sermons recently, which has impacted my life, and I'm sure will impact your life. So we'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Cultivate Your Faith. We cultivate our faith by feeding on the Word of God. By sharing, we receive. By receiving, we grow. Will you share as you have received? Join us next week as we continue our journey. Go to CultivateurFaith.com to sign up to our email list, subscribe for new episodes, and find the resources mentioned in the show notes.